Welcome to the Huff-In-Stuff podcast, where we discuss board games, card games, and entertainment for the casual gamer. Brought to you by the Southwest Valley Gaming Group. We invite you to visit our podcast at huff-and-stuffpodcast.webs.com. We are so glad you joined us. Now here are your Huff-In-Stuff hosts for today's episode.
Oh good, humans. Huff-In-Stuff Podcast, Episode 10, Space Games and Science Fiction.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Hello, sir. I am C-3PO Human Cyborg Relations.
Welcome to the 10th episode of Huff-In-Stuff Podcast. Today, riding shotgun is Steven here. Say hi, Steven.
Hello, everybody.
We are recording this on, what is today? Saturday the 12th?
Saturday the 12th.
12th of
April,
right? Okay. This episode, we are going to be talking about space, this type of theme in a game. It's flat out my favorite.
Absolutely.
And it's something that is normally, I don't think, done well enough, but I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Let's delve right into it.
Hey guys, now it's time to talk about what we've been playing recently.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
That's right, Elise. Now we're going to talk about what we've been playing recently. I'm going to throw that into your court, Steven, and tell me what you played. I think you played something recently on Thursday nights, isn't it?
Recently, yeah, Thursday nights. Let's see, what did I play? I got my first taste of Coup. I'd never played Coup before,
Okay.
The little kind of filler card game. I enjoyed it. It was interesting. And then the other game that fits very well with our theme of this show is I just got my first taste of Eminent Domain, deck building game. It was very interesting. We kind of jumped in with a lot of the expansions, the newest one in particular, and so we were all kind of still learning. But it was interesting. I had a good time.
Well, now that game is supposed to take, I believe, about an hour, but because you guys were learning it, it took you a little longer, and you took that break because Donna had to go get her daughter Kai, right?
Yeah, we did take a little bit of a break, but it went along pretty well. I didn't feel like it slowed down at all. I didn't feel like it was dragging, or I wasn't waiting and going, oh, come on, can this go a little faster? I liked the pace of the game. It was good.
Now, tell me, I've been kind of curious about that game. I love space, obviously, like I said earlier in the podcast, and it's one of the things that I've been kind of keeping my eye because I love Race for the Galaxy, and that's something we'll cover a little later on in the episode. But Race for the Galaxy is one of my wife's favorite games. In fact, I would even say it's probably in her top 1 or 2. Of her games that I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she loves it that much. Now tell me, and so that's why I've had sort of my eye on this one too, because it seems similar in that way. Have you played Race for Galaxy?
I have played Race for the Galaxies
and
a couple times.
How does that compare?
They're very similar. I think there's some very key differences in mechanics. I like the whole. In Eminent Domain, you have to choose. So you have, instead of everyone picking cards in Race for the Galaxy, they pick a card and that's their main goal for that round. And everybody picks it. They can pick a different one, or it's all done randomly. So that overlap can occur in Race for the Galaxy. The same thing can happen. There's fewer choices. I think there's only 5 different possible choices each round for each person's turn in Eminent Domain. But I enjoyed it. It's I think I like Race for the Galaxy a little more from my experience in playing it, and maybe if I got to play Eminent Domain a few times more, I would get a little more familiar with it. Maybe it would click a little more for me.
Mm-hmm. One of the games I played was Zularedo. Is a lighter game. It's a tile laying game, and basically you pull tiles out of the bag and you put it down. Zularedo, really like it. In fact, I believe if I could find this used, I would probably pick it up for my family, because it's a very family-friendly, it's theme about zoos and whatnot. I have to tell you a little side note here. It was really cool. We were sitting there trying to set up, and a new guy came in. His name is Tim. And he came in and he was looking around. He looked like I don't want to say was lost, but he looked a little bit like not sure where to go. So I immediately go, hey, what's up? And all that. He goes, very open to whatever. And I said, hey, you want to play? And he goes, sure. So he came over, and I think I have a convert.
Awesome.
A convert to the board gaming world, right? Because that's really, we've talked about this before on other episodes. That's one of the goals of the podcast. That's one of the goals of our gaming group that we have on not only Thursday nights, because I know that's their goal too.
Absolutely.
Imperial Outpost. I know that's one of their goals because it's in their best interest.
Absolutely, can't disagree with that.
And so it's ours too, and it should be. This is a whole nother topic for another day, but it should be the goal of every board gamer to be the evangelical. That's probably the wrong word, but the evangelist of board games. And why is that? Because the more people you have to play with, not only do you expand your little black book of friends, right?
Absolutely.
But you also expand your game playing. Because let's face it, I don't know how many friends I have that just aren't into board gaming at all. I count myself lucky to have the people in my life that I do, but not all of them are going to enjoy board games.
I can't agree more. I have a lot of friends that definitely are not into the board game stuff, and I've converted a few since I've started coming to game night. I started only about 1.5 years ago playing all these games, and this world of board games and card games and everything is opened up, and it's, oh my gosh, why couldn't I have found out about this 5 years ago or more? Right. And I've been able to convert a few of my closer friends to trying some interesting games out. So I can't agree more. I try to be very friendly to people walking around in the shop as well when I see them. If they don't look like they're looking for someone in particular, I try to go, hey, how's it going? And what you doing? Are you here for board game night? And see what they say.
That is very important, I think. I know we're getting off a little bit on topic here, but that's always an important thing that I like to share. That it's something important. But with that said, Tim, the new guy, he won Zularedo. He was having a good time. So, that always helps to have your first game win.
Beginner's luck, right?
Well, whatever. We were happy that he was having a good time, and that's all that's important, really.
Absolutely.
Now, what's something else that you got to play that night? You said you played Coup. Tell me a little bit about Coup.
I don't know how to describe Coup.
It looks a little bit like Love Letter.
It is fairly similar. So everybody gets 2 cards, and these are your individuals. These are your influence. There's a duke, and there's an assassin, and there's a captain, and it's kind of got a little bit of a space sci-fi theme to it, I guess, a futuristic theme. Mm-hmm. And so basically each card gives you a special ability, and you're trying to earn money and then influence, and you can spend the tokens to get influence or do something or get rid of another person's character. And if you're the last person standing, or if you have the most influence, I don't exactly recall how the end game situation, I guess, but in our game there was one person standing out of the 4 of us that had an individual left, so they won. But it was interesting, and you're kind of to fake your way through a lot of things. You try to claim that you get to do this ability, and then they can call you out and challenge it. And if they do that, then it affects your influence, and it gets rid of one of your characters or something like along that line. Right. So it's an interesting game. I'm not necessarily always very good at hiding my intentions.
I think you could call that a bluffing game.
It is a lot of bluffing. Yeah. I think there is bluffing involved, definitely.
I know that Love Letter's not quite bluffing, but there's that elimination, and it's you have a few cards in your hand, so it mimics that similar gameplay, I would say.
They are similar in that respect, yes.
Yeah. The other game that I got to play, Seasons. I'm going to bring out La Battaglia, but I think people are getting tired of this game. We played it so much, I think. Eric said, let's play Seasons. So I said, great, because I haven't played it in, I think, almost a year. Now, Eric told me he plays that a lot online.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that?
I need to find these websites that I keep hearing about.
See, the only problem with some of these sites is that you play with strangers, and part of why I play board games is that I enjoy playing with people I know, my friends.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is why I don't enjoy doing things online unless I know those.
Yep.
And it's just my personal preference. However, I did try, the name is escaping me right now, there's 2 websites that have board games that are online. And they don't have them all, but they've got some really good ones on there. And if you want to try Seasons, that's a good way to try it. I mean, I think you've played it before, haven't you?
I don't think I have.
What?
Unfortunately, I know. You know what? It's there are so many games I haven't been able to play.
There's a lot.
Every time I go into the shop on Thursdays, or every time I come to your house to play games or whatever, there are so many that I want to try, but there's not enough time.
There's not enough time, and they're all so expensive that you'd like to buy them, but it's just not right.
I could buy a game every single time I'm in the shop, but I really have to tell myself that no, you can't do that.
You got to be careful. You have to be careful. You can get yourself in trouble. Mm-hmm. We played Seasons, and I've never won that game before, and I actually won. Now, we didn't play the whole 4 rounds. We ran out of time with the store, but we're having a great time. The new guy, Tim, was having a blast, so it was all good. And everyone was smiling and having a good time, and that's really what's all that counts.
That's all that matters.
Yep. And that is what we've been playing.
And now, it's time for Word of the Day.
Aye, sir. Wrap it up, fuzzball.
That's right, Elise. It is time for Word of the Day. And I'm going to jump in here, Stephen, and say that our word we're going to cover for today is roll and move. Now, roll and move is a term that a lot of the board gaming industry uses that is to indicate a gameplay mechanism that drives a game by having the player roll a die, and then that mandatory move according to the results of the die. Often the term roll and move is used in a defamatory or condescending tone, implying that a randomizer replaces a tactical movement, and that game involves relatively mindless play. Now, one of the things that we often refers to when they're saying roll and move is games like Life. If you've ever played Life.
Life or Monopoly.
Or Monopoly, right? These kinds of games, Sorry, right? And I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing, although it does remove a touch of evil. It has a roll and move mechanism in there, and people get frustrated with that part of the game.
Yeah.
And what we do is we'll roll 2 dice, and we will do a house roll. And we'll say, you can take one of the dice.
One or the other.
Like in some games, you'll take 2 cards, and you'll take one, and you draw 2, but you pick one over the other.
Yeah.
So it gives you kind of options. People complain that this roll and move is a mechanism that is for beginner games. That when they want to simplify the game, streamline it, but there's a lot of people that don't like it. What has your experience been in this?
There are definitely some games out there that probably use this mechanic when they might have chosen something else, but there are also several games that I can imagine that, or that I can think of that exist, that roll and move feature is fairly significant into how the game plays, and it's still a really good game.
Right.
The really big one that I came across, I'm trying to think of these games, and I was looking up and trying to categorize them, and the really big one that I love and my family loves is Formula D, or Formula Day.
I never thought about that.
It's a roll and move. The really interesting decision you get is, am I going to shift up? Am I going to shift down, or am I going to stay in this gear? And then comes the rolling gamble of how many spaces am I going to move based on the die that I get because of what gear I'm in. And when you roll that die, you have to move all of those spaces. There are a few exceptions. You can break, or you can, overshoot turns or things like that. But for the most part, you really have to take that full movement, and it's in your best interest, usually, to take that full movement most of the time.
I am so glad you brought that up. You're right, and most of the time we think of this in a negative sense, but Formula D, it works so good.
It does.
It works really well. I know there's a few others out there that I'm having a brain freeze at the moment that I don't remember all of these, but it can definitely work.
Well, one of them I was coming across, for our space theme here is not Merchant of Venus a roll and move in a sense?
You're
rolling
it is.
In order. Now you have other decisions to make.
Right.
So that's, a good use of the feature. That having that feature doesn't equate to a bad game.
Right.
It's how you use it, really.
Right.
And I think that's another game that's considered a good game that has a roll and move feature.
Yeah, there are parts to that game that are extremely frustrating to folks. Because you'll get a roll and you don't want to go somewhere, but it's kind of forcing you to go there, or you overshoot something and whatever. Yeah. So I kind of understand what people's beefs are and such. However, it is something that can be used to great effect. And that is the word of the day.
You have been listening to the Huff-In-Stuff podcast. That's right, the most ridiculous podcast I've ever listened to. Why are you still here? Really, why are you still here?
And now it's time for our main topic.
That's right, Elise. We are on to our main topic, and as we said at the beginning of the podcast, is going to be about space games. This is, bar none, my favorite theme for a game.
Mine too.
So I called Steven here and I said, hey, we need to do a podcast. And he was like, okay, what are we going to do? Whatever. And so we were throwing out ideas and I go, we should just do space. And Steven was a little apprehensive at first when I said, so I started saying, no, we need to do this because it's one of my favorites.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I was a little apprehensive. I'm going, well, I don't think I have enough experience on this, but
well,
there are a lot of great games out here.
Yeah, you can argue that about any theme or any kind of hobby. I'm not an expert, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But your opinion counts just like mine, and that's what this podcast is all about. Steve and I were talking about this, and I have made a list of space games that are relatively popular, obscure ones I'm not going to talk about because not many people play them and they're hard to find and hard to get.
Yep.
So we're going to stick with main games, or I should say the most popular games of the time right now. And I've tried to put them in
categories.
Categories. Thank you. The first one that we're going to talk about is Space 4X games, or epic space games. And of course, the granddaddy...
Twilight Imperium.
Right, Twilight Imperium. And it's gone through 3, and some people even say that they're thinking about making a 4th one. I can't see that. I think that might have been the case, doing some work on maybe the 4th one, but because the trend right now with games, with board games, is that they're trying to make things shorter.
Yeah.
And this is why Twilight Imperium isn't played more.
Yeah,
it's just that 8 to 12 hour timeline is just not good, you know.
Yeah, it's a pretty hefty game, but great nonetheless.
No, it's good. It's good. Now, let me say, when I first played this game, of course, I played with you the first time.
We had our first experience together there.
Mm-hmm. Right, and we had it at my house, and I touted it for over a month. You know, we're going to do it because, look, I mean, it takes so long to do. The game time is so long that I needed to get a whole day, and it's not easy to get with our schedules and work and family.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you do that? So what I did is I said, if I set it out far enough and just arrange that day, and then put it on the internet, make sure everyone knows about it, and have people come, then we can do this. And thank God that Eric knew the game really well.
Yes.
Eric, God bless you, because you did a fantastic job of teaching it and being a fantastic game host. You know, I was the host of the event and he was the game host, I think you could say. Twilight Imperium has been around forever. I really believe, as far as space games go, it's really the granddaddy of the hobby.
I'm not sure you can expand much more on that. So
yeah, okay. So I mean, that's one. The other one that I can put in there is Starfarers of Catan. Now, have you played? Did you play this one?
Yeah, we played it game night one night.
Okay,
yep.
One night we played it. I'm telling you, that one's the most underrated game in the whole list here, I believe.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. So basically, if you've not played it, it's basically like Settlers of Catan. Basically, I mean, obviously it's got it in the title there, but it's with a big board, and then you put these little numbers all over where the planets are, and there's aliens that you can get alien technology from, that there's spaceports, and it's got this big plastic ship, and it represents what's on your fleet, like all the different things that are on there. And I'm giving a little bit of story because a lot of you have never played this game before.
Yeah,
it's out of print, and I luckily found it at the used game store we had in last August.
Oh yeah,
and if you see it again, you probably should buy it, folks.
I probably would.
Yeah, it's that good.
Yeah.
Empires of the Void. Now, this is one I've had my eye on for a while. It's kind of an older one. And the only thing that's holding me back on this one, it's supposed to be like a Twilight Imperium light. I do not like the artwork. And I know people think, especially when it comes to my wife, she thinks I'm crazy. She goes, why would you not get a game because of the artwork? Well, unless the artwork is good, unless it's really, really good, it's hard for me to get into the theme or help draw me in.
I agree.
And that's the thing. There's so many games out there that I won't even touch because of the theme. There's plenty of games out there that are like that, where they have really bad artwork, and I just can't get into it at all. I just can't. Anyways, that's where Empires of the Void is great. It's supposed to be a very light, streamlined version of Twilight Imperium, but the artwork is very cartoony, and that's one of the things that I often will stay away from. Exodus Proxima Centauri. I'm probably saying that wrong. For his birthday from an in-law. Boy, when I heard he got this game, I'm like, man, I wish I lived closer to you. I would love to play this game because it's supposed to be a really good version of Twilight Imperium that takes 2 to 3 hours. The newest printing of it. See, the first printing of that game that came out, all the cards, the boards, is kind of flimsy. And so when they did the second printing, they improved on the printing and some of the products that they had inside the game. All the bits are
that's
better.
Good.
I'm itching to play that one. I can't wait. The other one in this category that I threw in there was StarCraft. Now, most people haven't played this game.
I had no idea it existed until one of the guys that work at the shop brought it in or had it on one of the tables at Board Game Night Thursday. I'm like, what is this game? I thought it was new. He's like, oh, it's been out like 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's out of print too.
Yeah, it is.
And that one, I looked up, and again, I've never played it. I've never even seen it in person, to be honest with you, until Thursday night, like you said. But that one looks like it's a Nexus Ops in a Twilight Imperium coding, or like a Twilight Imperium where it's a grand scale, where it's a Nexus Op fighting game.
Yeah, there is a really large scale to it, but it's kind of like corridors from what I could tell of how you get around. You're kind of funneled through rather than a big open zone, and maybe I'm interpreting it wrong.
Right.
That's perfectly reasonable, but at the same time, all the figures look just like the little pieces from the computer game StarCraft, and you've got all your armies and things like that you build, and your buildings that you construct, and technology, and about everything that I could imagine from StarCraft was in that game, and it was pretty impressive to be watching, even just to watch videos. I was looking it up. It was a pretty interesting game. I might have bought it had it been in print.
Had you known about it when it was printed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure about this. I think it's a Fantasy Flight game.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and I believe the gentleman who made the game was the maker of Twilight Imperium. I could be wrong on this one, but I could have swore I read this that he was the maker of it. That being said, that's why I think a lot of people liken it to Twilight Imperium, just not with spaceships, but like attack units, like ground units, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, anyways, interesting. I'm not sure I'm looking for a Nexus Ops maximum.
Yeah.
However you say that, right? But
Yep.
I'm not sure I'm looking for that, but whatever. The thing about the 4X games or the Epic games, I think they're kind of, I don't want to say going away, but I think it's hard for a company, a marketing, not a marketing company. It's hard to market a board game these days when it's an Epic game. I think
so.
Don't get me wrong. I think they're fine, and they have a place in the hobby for sure.
Absolutely.
But I think that when people have busier schedules, we've talked about this in other episodes, and we just alluded to it a while ago when we were talking about Twilight Imperium. People with their busy schedules, it's really hard to get a 4-hour slot in your day.
Yeah,
really, it is. Especially if I came over to Steven's house and we said, hey, let's play a game or whatever. I may not have 4 hours. I'll have 2 or 3, but 4 is pushing it, boy.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. And now, of course, if I'm in elementary or junior high or high school, I have plenty of time to do that.
Agreed.
But the majority of the hobbyists have regular jobs and families and whatnot, so it's kind of hard. And I think that's why I'm sad to say, that's why I think the Epic game, just the Epic game in general, is going away.
I think you're right, and I think, again, the people that have the time to spare probably tend to spend a little more time playing video games or something like that.
Right.
Not sitting down to play 6 to 8 hour board game. I definitely probably wish I could have come across this when I was still in high school, because it would have been awesome. Something like Twilight Imperium, but I don't have that kind of time these days anymore. We go to game night and it's a 4 to 9 or 5 to 9, or a lot of people don't arrive till 6ish, so you get 3 or 4 hours, and most people just can't pull out a game like that.
No, most people want to have more than one game in their evening. They don't want to just commit to one game. So that's
a lot of times that's how I feel, and even then, I only get 2 games in that 3 to 4 hours. So.
Right. Again, it's sad to say, but this is the way it's going.
Sometimes I just don't understand human behavior.
Now let's move on. We've got a lot to cover here. The other strong category in this genre is card space games. Now I know that Race for the Galaxy is, bar none, probably one of top 3 games, okay? Especially my wife's.
It's a good game. I mean, I've only played it a couple times, so I don't think I can say it's one of my top games.
Yeah.
But it is a good game, and I would play it if anybody pulls it out and says, hey, you want to play Race for the Galaxies? Heck yeah, let's get that started.
What makes Race so popular? A number of things. Card games in general. We just had an episode that I posted recently about card games. One of the reasons why card games is so strong is because you can do a lot with it. You can put some beautiful graphics on it. You can turn cards and exhaust them, right?
Yep.
I think Magic does that, right?
Magic does that.
Where they turn a card sideways and it becomes exhausted.
Yep.
So there's lots of things that you can do with cards. You do all kinds of neat things with it, and it's compact.
It is compact, yeah. That's a great thing about it. Race for the Galaxy, the artwork is pretty good. The background artwork on a lot of it. The general design on the bordering of the cards and things like that, I think is maybe a little basic, a little weak.
It's a little
but
weak.
The artwork is good.
And what you're talking about is graphic design.
Yeah.
Because graphic design and art are 2 separate things.
Yes.
And that should be an episode in the future about that. And I should drag my wife in it because she's an artist, and we'll have an episode about art. Because it's super important these days in games. If you don't have good graphic design and or art, you can forget about selling your game. That's just the way it is. I'm glad you hit upon this because this is something I was going to say. The only thing holding me back with Race for the Galaxy is the design of it. The artwork is a little weak, and the graphic design is especially weak. Now, I know that the art people are like, what are you talking about? It's fine. When you're up against games like Nothing Personal, and I don't know if you've ever seen the artwork for Nothing Personal, but it's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing.
Look great.
And then you're up against even games like Twilight Imperium. The artwork for that is just phenomenal. So you're up against all these games with just amazing artwork. You've got beauty in front of you, and then you've got a game that's good, but it's not beautiful. Now you're competing. And if you're trying to sell board games, boy, you got to be on it. So anyways, that's a whole nother topic for another day. Another thing that holds people back with that game is the symbols on the cards.
Yes.
That symbology, I guess you could call it, is if you don't know that symbology, you're going to be struggling a little bit. And even me, I don't play it as much as I would like, but that's all those symbols, I forget some things.
Yeah, and they do give you, that sheet to keep track of everything.
Right.
They come with a few of them so you can hand them out to all the players. And it works, but at the same time, it's difficult. It takes a lot of practice to just be able to read those and, get them right away and know what you're doing.
Right.
So having those is necessary to train players, for players to familiarize themselves with it. They do need to play multiples of times before they're really going to get all that symbology down.
Right. Moving on. Core Worlds. Now, I know Core Worlds is a game that I have my eye on. As far as all these space games, it's in the top 2 or 3 that I've really been interested in. And something that I'm like, okay, I really would like to play this game, and I'd like to kind of own it, but I want to play it, and I know there's one gentleman, his name is Tim, and his wife, I believe her name is Julie. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe so.
Tim and Julie. That's one of his favorite games,
yeah,
bar none. And I know his favorite game other than that is Race for the Galaxy as well. Core World struggles, I think, from what Race for the Galaxy struggles from. There's a lot of information on the cards. It maybe not have all the symbols on the cards. The graphic design is good, but it's not as good as it could be, I think. And what I mean is the graphic design part. Because I think the artwork on Core Worlds is better than Race for the Galaxy, but it's the graphic design that I think on Core World suffers. Now again, I know we're going into graphic design and artwork. That's something that isn't really important when it comes to the mechanics of a game. Like, I know the mechanics are like one of the most important things you can have on a game.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to that, it's super important to me, right?
On cards, I agree. It's a very important thing with card games.
So anyways, Core Worlds, again, I know that's super popular. They've got like 2 different expansions for it, so it's doing well as far as that goes. I can't wait to play it. But again, this is another card game that's portable, that is as far for the most part is nice looking and strong mechanics. Now, Eminent Domain, you talked about that. So why don't you take over this section? Because we talked about it earlier in what you've been playing recently. But why don't you get into it a little bit more and tell me what you thought was great about it?
What I thought was great The pace of the game was really good. The artwork, the design of the cards is also really good. I don't think there's as much blandness as might be on some of the cards in Race for the Galaxy or Core Worlds. There's not that in Eminent Domain. Everything looks good. It looks kind of techy. It looks, it has that space and futuristic theme to it.
Right.
And the mechanics play really well. You're going around and from player to player, and you get to play an action card. And different cards have different action effects, and you can attack planets, or you can use a survey card, and it lets you draw cards out of your hand or out of your deck into your hand because it's a deck builder. And you've got you can colonize planets, or there's the military action, and that lets you attack planets or build up your fighters. And you can exchange the fighters for larger ships, and they help you attack other planets, or the battle cruisers are worth points at the end of the game if you've got those. Then there's trading and production, so you're producing on your planets and you get to trade those resources for your influence points. And then there's research, which I never once did any research at all in my hand when I played the other night, because basically the card I started with out of this expansion we started with these scenarios that I think are with the expansion, and the scenarios basically tell you what your starting planet is, and you get a starting technology, and then you get a set hand. My hand was 5 cards to start with, so I had no deck that I was going through like the other players, but I had these politic cards, and they're basically kind of a wild card. You exchange that as an action for whatever kind of card you want, so you can kind of, with a very small hand or small deck, build the focus that you want. And I was pretty much all survey and all military for a large part of the game, because I had like a special ability that the survey cards I could play to boost all of my other actions, which was great. So it was an interesting game, and the mechanics play really quick. It doesn't bog down. Maybe if we played with 5 people, which is allowed in the expansion. If you play with 5 people, you need a few of the extra ship pieces, which are nice little figures too. They're nice little plastic figures.
Right, I saw them. They look beautiful.
They look great. The design's unique. They don't exactly look like copies of anything. I guess you could say the battlecruiser looks a bit like some of the Dominion battleships from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, maybe. Other than that, I mean, the pieces were great. It worked great. The game flowed really well. I mean,
it looked like to me that 3 on that game, maybe 4 would be the sweet spot. 5,
I agree.
5 is probably too much, and that's probably why it took you guys longer to do.
It did take us longer. It definitely took us longer with 5. And 3 or 4, I think, is ideal. 4 is... I'm not sure. I guess I haven't played with fewer people. So, yeah, 3 or 4 is definitely ideal with that game.
Now, 2, of course, you could probably do it. But
I think it plays 2.
Yeah, you could probably do it. But you'd probably want to play with 3 or 4 because the dynamics of interacting with your fellow players would change. So.
Yeah, we had one person that pretty much dominated the game there at the end, or through the length of it, because 3 out of 5 of us had a military focus, and he had 2 cards, 1 planet and 1 technology card, that gave him 1 influence each every time he didn't do a military action.
Oh, wow.
So the 3 of us were all going through military, and here he is just racking up some influence points. So yeah, nobody could catch him by the end of the game.
I just recently picked up Among the Stars. Now
that is a good card game.
Yeah. Now again, this goes. I didn't put this down on our list here, but it just hit me. I'm like, I forgot to put that down. This game I've wanted for a long time. The reviewers on the Dice Tower, and I'm giving props here to the Dice Tower again, but the Dice Tower and some of these other places were like, oh yeah, this is a really great game, and my wife really likes Race for the Galaxy, so I figured she would like this. I mean, there's not any attacking going on because she's not... Most women I know aren't into aggression and attacking and all that, so I thought she would probably like this game. So, of course, I had to order it from Europe, and it cost me a pretty penny here. Yep. We got it, and then as soon as I get it, I find that they have a Kickstarter for a fraction of the price. So I'm like going, gosh, really? Come on, man. The fates were knocking me around a little bit here.
I enjoyed it. We played it a little bit. We didn't get through a whole game there on tabletop day we were playing. With the game, I guess we can discuss, it's a drafting game with cards. card drafting game, and the artwork's great. I think it's a really nice space theme to it, and you're building a space station.
Let me jump in real quick before you go on. What I wanted to say about the artwork real quick is that the artwork is kind of interesting. It has a very painterly feel to it. If you can actually see in the artwork, if you look really closely, there's brush strokes to it.
Yeah.
So it looks like someone took acrylic paint or oil and they sort of brushed it. So it has a really interesting feel to it, right?
It looks a lot like concept art from some kind of a show or a game or a movie.
Right.
It really makes me think of like Star Wars concept art or something like that.
That's a great thing to say, and you're right. It looks exactly like that. With that said, they did a really good job when they did the artwork, and I don't mind that concept art really. In fact, in some ways, it looks very interesting, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's really great is they used some primary colors when they did it so that it matched some of the graphic design around the edges of the thing. So it totally matches.
Absolutely.
Which is smart. Whoever was in charge of that set in the art direction or whatever you call it did a really great job of matching all that up. Anyways, go ahead with some of the... You were going to say something, I think, about mechanics.
Yeah, so you start out, we're building space stations, and it's a really neat theme. I have not heard of or found any other game where you are building a space station. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my experience. So you start out, everybody gets the same card, and it's your main reactor, and you get little energy cubes, right, that you can spend on certain cards.
Yep.
So you've got your energy cubes for power, and you've got credits that you're buying cards with as you're going and handing off the decks or the hands of cards and drafting the cards out of them. And so the mechanic is really simple and straightforward, and all the instructions, what your point value and everything that you need is on the card. And really, the more I thought about it, the more I thought that this is a really complete game.
Right.
And so that's just all you're doing is you get your hand and you take your card and you spend your credits, and everybody sets the card down and then at once flips it over and identifies what new section of the space station they're building, and then you pay your credits and the hand moves on, and it just goes around like that. And I thought it was really well done. I'd like to play it, and I think I might go buy it on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Sorry to brag that I'll get it for cheaper than you did.
No, it's fine. What I did on the Kickstarter is I got the expansion. You get the expansion, and that's why now if you do a certain level, I think that you get extra cards or something if you get it now. So that's why I sort of told you about that, because I knew you probably liked the game. Now, what is interesting about this game is everything. There's a little bit of a theme going on here with this game. Well, not a little bit, but there's a big theme. And one of the things I saw was that the cards are a square. They're not a normal card, and that makes sense because you're building a space station, and if there's squares, you can put them on the board, and it looks visually interesting too.
Yeah.
And you got a number of cards out there. It looks like, and these shapes are all different shapes. You can have an L shape, an 8 shape.
You can make a big circle with it. You can make your ring, kind of a ring-like space station, or you can make it really long. I think I kept having to shift because I kept building down towards myself, and
that's right.
To push it away from myself.
And they have these little energy plastic clear cubes that are beautiful. I mean, they fit perfectly with the shape of the cards. I mean, everything is very well thought out. It's a Greece company, Appia, I think it's called, Appia Games, and they did such a great job, and they designed it well from top to bottom. Really, this game is super underrated.
From what I've heard, my only complaint, I think, or the complaint that I've heard, is the scoreboard is a little goofy, and with the new Kickstarter, with the reprinting of the game, which it's I guess they redid the scoreboard there. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I guess the little chips, the coins, could have used a little bit more design. They're pretty basic cardboard, and particularly they don't look like sci-fi credit pieces or anything. So that maybe could have used a little bit more work. But the rest of the game really takes away from overrides any complaint that I could possibly make about it.
Yeah. The next section here that we're talking about, I put, this is nothing, it's not official, but I said Euro space games. Now, there are two that I think are in this sort of genre. One is Eclipse. When you listen to the Dice Tower, they're like, this is not a space game, this is a economic game in space, basically.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Alien Frontiers, because that one is very Euro-y as well. It's just dice. You roll the dice and you put them on there and they represent ships and stuff. So those are the two. Now Eclipse, let's go back to Eclipse real quick.
I haven't played either of these.
Right, I've not played them either. I've not played them either. And in some ways I've stayed away. And there's a couple reasons why. Again, people think I'm crazy when I talk about this kind of stuff, but in order for me to want to play a game and for me to want to buy it and all that, it has to meet a certain requirements. Number one, obviously I said artwork. That's number one. Number two, it has to have a theme. Now this has a great theme. I'm all into space stuff, but as far as Alien Frontiers, it's on one planet. I want a game that's in space, not in one planet. So I know it's an alien planet and you're trying to whatever, right? But that's one of the things I do not like about the game is that it's on there. Also, I know it sounds crazy, but I don't like dice representing ships. I know this is a trend right now with a lot of space games, is they like taking dice and making them a ship or something, or representing ships.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
that.
I don't like it. If you're going to do that, make a ship. And then roll the dice and then put that on your player board or something.
Yeah.
Don't make that a ship, because what you're doing is you're taking away from the aesthetics of the game. I want to have something that draws me in. If I see a dice out on the board, this again, I know this sounds crazy, but if I see a dice out on the board, I'm not going to think that's a spaceship, even though we're technically supposed to be spaceships.
I'm more inclined to try and grab it and roll it just for the heck of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Now, Eclipse, one of the things I'm not down with is, for one, Eclipse takes a long time. Mm-hmm. I think the playing time on that is 4 hours. So now some people might argue with me, but every time I see it brought out, people are in it for the entire time they're at the game store or whatever. Every time they break it out, they're there forever. That's number one. That's the strike one against it with me. Number two, if I'm going to buy a game that has economics, I'm going to buy other games that do it better. People love this game, so I know people are going to be upset with me. I'm dissing Eclipse here, but there's nothing about it that makes me want to play it, other than the fact that it's in space. Now, with that said, these are both two very popular games, and everyone loves them. And the artwork on both of them is solid. The components are solid. They're nice, bulky, heavy dice, and the little, on Eclipse, I know they come with these little black, are they black or are they different colored? I can't remember.
I can't recall.
The little ships they have are beautiful. It's just, as far as beauty goes, artwork, all of that is great. It's just there's little things that are holding me back. Now, let's move on.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
There's another types of space games that I consider space combat games. Star Wars X-Wings, Starfleet Battles, Star Trek Attack Wings, Battleship Galaxies, Nexus Ops, Space Hulk, Level 7. Level 7 is a game that came out last year, and I believe it was at the end of last year. People were just going, whoa, what the hell? This is like one of the best things since sliced bread. And apparently, from the reviewers, what I keep hearing is it's like, if you remember the movie Aliens, it's the second one in the series, where they had the Space Marines, and they were in the thing, and they were fighting off the aliens. It's similar to that.
I know. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about now?
Yep.
And on the board, it's got a magenta, purplish, and black, and it's got 3 guys on the front. Okay?
Yep.
That's the game that we're talking about here. Now, I'm not sure. I've not played it yet. I would love to play this game.
I've seen it a couple times, played it at the shop, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
That Aliens movie I've seen it I don't know how many times. It's a great movie. Very exciting, a very good dialogue in that movie. But this game is supposed to be like that in board game form.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. Now, the reason why I haven't bought it is a couple of things. Number one, you need a dungeon master.
Yes.
And that's too bad. Because if it had a system that was more like, I don't know if you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons, Wrath of Ashardalon.
Nope.
There's that series where there's 3 of them. There's Castle Ravenclaw, and there's The Legend of Drizzt.
Okay.
There's those 3 that have It's a dungeon crawler in a sense, a card-based AI.
Oh, that's nice.
It's the dungeon master in card form. So what it hits you as you're going along in the dungeon, and that I wish it had. If level 7 had that, I would be buying it tomorrow because I love the theme.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's basically a dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
At its core, it's a dungeon crawler. And don't get me wrong, dungeon crawlers are great. I have 2 of them already. I don't need another one, technically.
Yeah, they can be fun.
They're blast.
Especially with a great group of people or what have you. But yeah, it's just a dungeon crawler reskinned with a sci-fi feel instead of fantasy.
Right, and I'm saying one of the reasons why level 7 is so popular, or one of the things, and we'll move on here, but I'll say that there's a lot of customization with the characters. Like you can make your soldier this, or you can make him that, and people love that. That's where level 7 become popular, is because of that. You customize it to what you like. Now let's go back to our list. Now we had threw out some names. Let's talk about Star Wars X-Wings. And now I have not played it. So why don't you talk? I know you've played it. Why don't you talk about it?
I have played it. I own it. I own a base set. This was something that a friend of mine, actually, a friend who doesn't play a lot of board games, said, hey, my brother got this game or whatever, and I've heard about it. And I said, well, it's at the shop. I'll go buy it if you want. So we decided, my brother, my friend, or our friend and I decided we'd split the cost of the game. It's like $45, I think, is the base set. It's really not that bad. And it comes with 3 great miniatures. This miniatures game is awesome. They're pre-painted. It's awesome. So we bought the set and we liked it. We played like a 3-person thing, 2v1. There's 2 TIE fighters and an X-Wing in the set. And we played and we enjoyed it. And then I ended up going and buying one of every single little expansion that came out at the time. Now I haven't bought in the most recent ones, but I know a lot of people have a lot more than that. There's a goofy little cartoon, and I forgot to source this so that I can cite it, but there's a cartoon where there's a guy and he's sitting on the floor playing with his son, and the new X-Wing game, it looks an awful lot like something you'd be collecting. Don't worry, it's just a casual game is the explanation that they give. And then the next frame is them with miniatures all over the floor and the furniture and everything, and a gigantic Death Star figure and everything. And the guy's he's dressed up as a rebel pilot from Star Wars, and he goes and he looks at his wife and says, mistakes were made. It cracks me up because it's one of those games where you're like, oh, look at the new ship coming out. Right. I gotta buy that. Right. And they're coming out with some really crazy ones now, big ones.
Fantasy Flight's kind of smart because they got the licensing on that, and then they said, boy, this is a moneymaker, boy, because we'll come out with some new fancy stuff. Now I'm not sure how far they can go because the Star Wars universe is only so big, that you can continue making stuff of them. But maybe they could come out with a different color scheme on something or something.
Yeah,
do that, go that route. And I know that Star Trek Attack Wing is similar.
Yes,
so
it's very similar.
Yeah, we won't go into Star Trek because it's kind of the same thing. But let me just say that I believe the success of Star Wars X-Wing is because what it does is it takes miniature gaming, which has been around for a while. I mean, it's not
absolutely.
This is not the first time that this has become popular. But I believe what they've done is they've taken it and done a few things. Of course, everyone likes Star Wars. I don't know anyone who doesn't like Star Wars. Number one, they've got great themes. They even put pilots inside of the. You can put, I guess.
Yeah, you've got all sorts of different upgrades, pilots, and different armaments that you can equip on the ships. Different droids in some of the rebel ships. You can have different astromech droids and stuff as your cards. Yeah,
but it takes all of that, and then on top of it, it simplifies the whole miniature gaming.
Yes.
To down to its core with some of the interesting themes that go along with Star Wars, and they've packaged it in a great way. Obviously, it's Fantasy Flight, obviously.
Yeah.
But you put all that together, and this is why it's a winner. I don't think Star Trek Attack Wings are so successful because if you watch the show, if you watch the movies, Star Trek isn't necessarily about battling, although there are movies and scenes.
A lot of the end of Deep Space Nine tried to change that, with the whole Dominion War thing. We always had in Star Trek, we were alluded to wars that happened, but never got to see it.
Right. So, but my point is that Star Wars is really all about war in space, really. Star Wars, right? I mean, so it lends itself well to it. Plus, all of the dialogue, the culture involved with it is so strong that this is why it's just taken off. And I know Battleship Galaxies is similar. It's a miniatures game that takes battleships in space, and there was that cartoon back in the late 70s that I watched when I was a kid that had a battleship in space, and it's similar. But again, Battleship Galaxy doesn't have the background that Star Wars does.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it does so well. Nexus Ops. Now let's touch on this real quick.
Okay.
I've not played it, and I don't think you have
I haven't either. Yeah.
It's been out for a little while, and I know that it's super good. It's a really great game. Tactics game with miniatures on a hexagonal big square or a big piece.
Yeah.
You move around the board and you're attacking and all that. Basically, it felt like a war game to me. I mean, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
I've not played it. But as far as the miniatures go, the theme is really cool. I'm starting to see this one die off a bit. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good game and people aren't still playing it. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
As far as popularity goes, though, I think people, if you're going to get into something like that, you're going to play like Level 7, Star Wars X-Wings, Star Trek Attack Wings, that sort of thing.
Yep.
I just don't see it still being so popular. Now let's move on. Now the next sort of section I thought we would talk about, and I sort of put these together, is negotiation or large interaction games. And one of these is called Cosmic Encounter. It's Tom Vassel's favorite game. Now I've never played it. I've seen screenshots of it being played, but I don't know a whole lot about it. A lot of player interaction, I should say.
Yeah.
And this game has a lot of that. It's very interactive. People are talking, making alliances and whatnot. And I know Battlestar Galactica is that way as well. Battlestar Galactica, I've never played it. Have you played it?
I haven't either played it.
Wow, I thought you would have played it for sure.
I've wanted to.
Now, this game lends itself perfectly to this style of game.
I think so, too.
Because if you think about a game that you played, I know you played this game before, it's The Resistance. Now, you could put The Resistance in this category.
Kind of.
You could.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not in space. It's futuristic.
Yep.
But it's similar because what you're doing is you're trying to weed out who's the Cylons and who's the bad guys or whatever.
Yep.
And interaction. I know the game has more to it than that. People love it. And also it sticks to that theme pretty well. If you watch the TV show, I'm sure you have.
Yes, I've seen some of it, yeah. I haven't watched a lot of it.
With that said, the board game did a fantastic job of mimicking that whole thing.
It definitely seems that way.
Yeah, and I can't wait to play it. Even though I don't totally into the show, people say, even if you're not into the show, you'll love this game because of that aspect, with the trader aspect.
I think so, yeah.
But this kind of game, I think, isn't represented enough in the space theme.
I agree.
That if you've ever played games like Nothing Personal, and they're not quite as popular as I would think they would be. Because think about all those games out there that make a ton of money. Games like Say Anything, Pictionary, and party games, right, are so big. And they sell to everybody because what are you doing when you're playing a game? One of the reasons why my brother will not play a solo game is because he goes, if I'm going to play something solo, I'm going to get on the computer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play a board game that has a solo variant because that's not what I want a board game to do for me.
Yeah.
I want to interact with people. And that's why when we're talking about negotiation or interaction space games, that's why I don't understand why there's not more of these.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's what a board game kind of is. It's interacting. Now, all these games, you could argue there's some type of interaction between people.
There's a little bit in it, to add to the
built
experience.
In.
Twilight Imperium, for example, it's got a little bit of that built in.
Right.
When we played, there were 3, different alliances going back and forth and things like that. People trying to negotiate for not being attacked.
Right.
But that's not the main focus or the sole focus.
Right. I agree with you. Twilight Imperium was a perfect point to say that there's a good amount of interaction. It's just, personally, I think there needs to be more of that in games today.
Yeah.
Because if they had that, it would really help push a game from being good to great.
I think so.
There's so many out there that are right on that border.
Absolutely, you're right.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
Okay, let's move on. The next sort of group is what I call dexterity type space games. These are coming. They're becoming more and more popular. And when I say coming, I say they're becoming more popular. Space Cadets, Dice Duels, Quantum. Now, Quantum came out, I think, 3 to 5 years ago. And I don't know that for sure. I should have wrote down the date and all that it came out. The artwork on it looked phenomenal. The planets were these cardboard planets that you would flip over when you got close to exploring it or whatever. Your ship, you would flick across the board.
Oh my. Rob is telling you some wrong information. First of all, what he thinks he's talking about is not Quantum, it's Ascending Empires by Z-Man Games. It's where you flick pieces, and if they hit other ships, or other little pieces that represent ships, they blow up, or if they fall off the board, they blow up. Yeah, that's what he's trying to say. Quantum is a dice game that takes 45 minutes. It's an extremely simplified 4X game. So that's the difference. I guess I'll let you listen to it again.
Now, let's get back to Space Cadets, because I know a couple years ago that came out, Space Cadet. I believe it was 2012. That game, when it came out, people were like a little unsure at first about that. And the problem with both Space Cadets and Space Cadets Dice Tools is you need a lot of people.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that has held me back. Now, when my brother came visiting the town and we came to the Imperial Outpost, we played it.
We did the Dice Tools, right,
Tools.
yeah.
Loved the hell out of that game.
That was a great one.
I love this game. The reason why I don't have it, the reason why I don't own it, you need a lot of people.
Yeah.
And how many times do I have 8 people together in the same room? Now they
Not
say
often.
you can, and they say you could do it with 6, but I don't know how. Because
it was a little crazy. I mean, resistance requires 5,
right?
But to require 6 people, I mean, minimum, that's pretty. It probably goes lower, but then you're even doing more work, and I can't imagine it.
I can't imagine.
We were so loud in that shop that night.
Well, we were having
so much
I don't know
fun.
about you, but I had a blast with it.
I did too.
I was giggling like a little schoolgirl when we were playing this game, and when that happens, you're having a blast.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit to me, Escape
and something about
of the temple, right?
Yeah.
It felt like that because it was dice, and there was kind of timed in a way. I mean, it wasn't out and out time because there's 2 teams and you're trying to get that dice a certain way before your enemy gets it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then on the board, and you have someone kind of a commander over you, and it's such a fun game.
I had a blast. I mean, this one I can do. This one I was the I think they call
engineer.
it the engineer. If you're the one rolling the dice, and I was just rolling the dice and listening for our commander telling me what we needed and just rolling dice. Escape, I couldn't play because you're on your own, but with someone else working with me that could grab those dice as soon as I rolled what we needed and passed them along. Right. That was awesome.
These 2 games. Now I know Space Cadets isn't a dice game. I mean, I think there's some dice in it. I've not played it yet, but there's puzzles. Everyone has their own little puzzle.
Oh, okay.
Like a matching thing and this other thing over here. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone's got their own little puzzle, and they're trying to link it all up in a certain time limit, I believe.
Okay.
And I think Galaxy Trucker is a little bit that way too. Where I know I put Galaxy Trucker down in the miscellaneous department, but I think you could argue that Galaxy Trucker is that way as well. It's a little bit of the dexterity thing, where you're trying to get everything and put it down in a certain time limit. I watched it played at Jeff's house because Jeff has the deluxe version with all kinds of beautiful little pieces. It looked like a fun game. The reason why I don't like Galaxy Trucker, the artwork. I can't stand the artwork on it, and I know people are like, "You're crazy," but I won't buy it because of that. However, my favorite designer in the world that designed Mage Knight, Vlad something, I can't remember his name.
I forget his name.
I should be taken off the air right now. But
that's like saying some like a particular artist. You have like a favorite song and you don't even know the artist.
I don't even know.
I mean?
I'm so bad. Those games, I believe, are kind of the future of space games. And when I say kind of, I'm surprised that they haven't come out with more of it.
Yeah.
Because that dexterity, the timing element, And that ramps up the excitement level to a certain degree. And you're doing all this stuff and you're moving around and that's fun in a way. You're with your buddies and you're all trying to get it done.
Yeah, the dice duel, especially like the dice duels, you're working together and trying to get your ship into position so that you don't get shot or that you have shields and they're not going to get past your shields or what have you. It's a great game. It's fun for a group of people.
It's
if
blast.
You have the group of people.
You have to have you have to have a group, and that's why I haven't bought it. Dune and Rex is pretty much the same game.
Yes.
Dune is the one that was made, I believe, in the 80s. I could be wrong on that one. And Rex is obviously the Fantasy Flight's reskinning of it. They couldn't get the
Dune license?
Yeah, they couldn't get the Dune license, and so therefore they had to put it in the Twilight Imperium universe. But it's the same mechanics. And the artwork, of course, is beautiful on both games. I've not played this yet, so I'd like to. It has an interesting theme. But again, it's similar to Alien Frontiers. It's on one planet, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to be just on one planet. I want to be in space. That's what makes, to me, a good space game. The other one is Space Alert. Now, I know Space Alert, again, my favorite, Vlad here, did Galaxy Trucker and also Maze Knight. Space Alert is a timed game, I believe. You're in a ship, you're in space, and it's similar to Galaxy Trucker. It's a cooperative game. Now, I don't think Galaxy Trucker is a cooperative game, but Space Alert is. Yeah. It's similar to Space Cadets, where you're working to got certain cards down on your player board, and you have to put the right cards, you turn, and you got to get shields up, and again, similar in those games. But for whatever reason, it didn't interest me for artwork and all that, but there's something about it it didn't strike me as something to own. With all those games that we've just talked about, let's move into the future of gaming. What would you like to see if you were going to design a board game that was in space? What are some of the things you would like that you in some of these other games that you really like?
What do I like in a space board game? That's a difficult question.
It is.
There's so many games out there. You can almost say like take a couple existing games and kind of pick the key parts of that. Man, I'm not sure. Let
me jump in and then I'll come right back to you. Number one of the things I like about a space game is what I often like in a fantasy game. And one of the things I like about in a fantasy is my favorite game is Maze Knight. What I like about Maze Knight is one of the key elements in that game is you're exploring their world. When you start, you've got a certain starting tiles, and you're moving out from that tile and exploring. And the tiles are mixed together, and you pull out a tile and you flip it over and then you're exploring that tile. And so that is a blast. That is one of the key elements of why I like Maze Knight. I wish that a space game would have this. Now, one of the things about Starfarers of Catan is that it has a little bit of that element.
A little bit, yeah.
It has a little bit of that. I mean, you can see the universe on the big board, and you can see where the planets are, but you're never really sure. If they had tiles that would flip over like they do in Maze Knight, where you're not sure where the planets are in that universe, maybe you're in a sector that you don't know of the universe you don't know. If they had that would be a key element for me to be designing a board game if it was in space.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm a big co-op person. I like cooperative games.
Yeah.
So if you had something in that sense, maybe you're the crew of a ship. Something not quite like dice duels, but that's the kind of thing that I guess I'm kind of thinking of. If you're moving around and exploring and there's things going on and events you have to handle or what have you, that you're doing. I like working as a group for games. It's just my thing, I guess. I don't like confrontation as much as the next person.
Yeah, I'm not big on that either.
I mean, definitely there's plenty of fun to have in that.
Sure.
Star Wars, X-Wing, I love. And I love when these games have these beautiful miniatures.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it costs a lot more when they do that.
I'll pay extra. Yeah. Just as long as you have good components.
Good components, yeah. Yeah. One of the we were talking about the other day about one of these games is it's Star Trek Fleet Captains.
Yes.
Is out there, and it's been out for a little while, and they've got a new a Romulan expansion to it and things like that. It's two. They advertise 2 or 4 players. You know, it's one team versus another team essentially, and that game seems really, really interesting to me. But it's expensive, but it's got a lot of good components from everything that I can possibly see. It comes with like 24 miniature ships that are really well done.
They're beautiful.
So,
I've seen them. They're really beautiful. That is one game I did not bring up. I'm surprised I didn't bring it up because that is one that we should have talked about. But that is a great game, and I've been really interested because one of the things I would like to see in a space game, almost every one of these games that we talked about, almost every one of them has some type of combat in it.
Yes.
Some type of conflict or combat. And, one of the things that people loved in the space genre as far as entertainment goes, Star Trek is huge. Why is Star Trek huge? Because it's like you were going into another world and it was this discovery.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
When you watch these shows, right? And a lot of their shows that came afterwards played upon that. They were playing upon that whole theme where they were discovering the final frontier, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
all that. And this is where I wish games in the space genre had more of that. And I think that game you just talked about, that game Star Trek, what's the name?
Fleet Captains.
Fleet Captains, thank you. That's where I think more games need to have that. If they had that, I would be buying it in a heartbeat, a game that had that.
Yeah, from what I understand of that, you can win by just exploring. You could, theoretically, go the whole game without fighting your opponent, but it's not really the Klingon thing to do for the Klingon player.
Yeah, right.
So,
all of these that I've listed are solid games, and I would not be opposed to playing any of these. Even the ones I said, like even Alien Frontiers and Eclipse, I'm not big on. If you broke that out tomorrow, I'd probably play them because the space theme you never go wrong with, in my opinion.
I'm right with you.
So anyways, we're going to end it. We've gone way over time. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Have a great day or night, wherever you happen to may be when you're listening to this, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for joining the Huff-In-Stuff podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening and hope you can tune in next time. Huff-In-Stuff is brought to you by Southwestern Valley Gaming Group at swvalleygamingsgroup.webs.com. You can visit us on our webpage at huffandstuffpodcast.webs.com. That is HUFFNSTUFF podcast.webs.com. We love to hear from you, so leave us questions, feedback, or just say hi. As always, keep on smiling and game on.
No copyright is claimed in the 20th Century Fox, Universal, RCA, Disney for any music and soundtrack, and to the extent that material may appear to be infringed, we assert that such alleged infringement is permissible and under the fair use principle in U.S. copyright laws. If you believe this material has been used in an unauthorized or unlawful manner, please contact Huff-In-Stuff Podcast.